The morning of April 6, 2010 was like any other in the dense forests of Dantewada. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and wild leaves. Deep inside this jungle, a group of CRPF soldiers were on a mission, Operation Green Hunt. Their task, clear the area of Maoist rebels who called these forests home. The soldiers, tired but determined, trekked for hours into enemy territory. They believed they were making progress, but danger was hidden in the shadows. The Mukrana forest, a known Maoist stronghold, was a maze of trees and hidden paths. Every step was a risk, every bush could hide an enemy. The CRPF Jawans moved cautiously, scanning every inch, weighed down by heavy weapons and supplies. Far from home they pressed on, driven by duty. But the peace they sought was about to be shattered. The silence of the jungle was deceptive, a sign of a carefully laid trap. Maoist rebels had been watching, tracking the soldiers' every move. They knew the route, the numbers, the routine. The terrain favored the rebels, providing perfect cover for an ambush. The soldiers, unaware, walked straight into the trap. As the CRPF convoy moved deeper, unease grew. The usual sounds of the forest faded into an unnatural quiet. Some sensed something was wrong, but the mission had to continue. They trusted their training, not knowing they were walking into one of the deadliest attacks in India's history. The stage was set for a tragedy that would shake the nation. The silence before the storm was about to end. April 6, 2010 etched in India's memory as a day of immense sorrow. In the Chintalna-Tadmetla forest, a large group of security personnel was returning from a 3-day operation. Exhausted, they made their way back when the attack began. The Maoists struck with deadly precision, using their knowledge of the terrain to create a killing zone. The 62nd Battalion of the CRPF, 82 men strong, walked in a vulnerable line. Maoists, positioned on hilltops, opened fire from all sides. The soldiers were caught by surprise, unable to find cover. A powerful landmine exploded, throwing the patrol into chaos. Hundreds of rebels fired relentlessly. The fighting lasted for hours. 76 men lost their lives, 75 CRPF, 1 state police officer. It was the biggest loss for Indian security forces in a single Naxal attack. The Maoists used automatic rifles and IEDs, overwhelming the patrol. The CRPF Jawans were trapped in the open, outnumbered and outmaneuvered. News of the massacre sent shockwaves across the country. The Dantewada attack was not just a tragedy, it was a grim reminder of the brutal conflict raging in the heart of India. The nation would never be the same. To understand Dantewada, we must know the players. The CRPF, India's largest central armed police force, sent to the most dangerous corners of the country. The men who died were fathers, sons, husbands, ordinary people with extraordinary courage. Their mission: support state police, restore order, and fight the Maoist insurgency. The Maoists, or Naxalites, began as a peasant uprising in the late 1960s. Inspired by Mao Zedong, they seek to overthrow the government through violent revolution, claiming to fight for the poor and landless. They run a parallel government in the forests, using terror to control territory. Then there was Salwa Judum, a controversial anti-Maoist movement, made up of local villagers, some armed as special police officers. Supported by the government, it was later declared illegal for causing civil strife and human rights abuses. The conflict was complex: state forces, rebels and tribals caught in the middle. The CRPF were outsiders, the Maoists, brutal protectors, Salwa Judum, a source of division. In Dantewada, the lines between friend and foe blurred. The attack was a tragic result of a war with no easy answers. Every side had its own story and its own reasons for fighting. The Dantewada attack was no accident. It was a masterpiece of guerrilla warfare. The Maoists studied the CRPF's patterns, exploiting their predictable routes. Tadmetla, remote and hilly, was chosen for its perfect ambush terrain. Nearly 1,000 Maoist fighters, led by senior commanders, prepared the site. IEDs were planted along the path, designed for maximum chaos. Multiple layers of fighters waited, some to open fire, others to loot after the attack. The rebels used deception, possibly leaking false information to lure the CRPF deep into the forest. The soldiers, exhausted after 3 days, let their guard down. The Maoists waited until the entire patrol was in the killing zone. Even after the attack, more IEDs delayed rescue teams. The goal not just to kill, but to demoralize and send a message. Every detail was planned. The CRPF walked into a trap with no escape. The Maoists proved they could strike at will, anywhere, anytime. The ambush was a chilling display of their power. The attack began with a thunderous explosion, an IED tearing through the CRPF patrol. Chaos erupted as bullets rained from the hills, pinning the soldiers down. The Jawans were caught in an L-shaped ambush, a classic guerrilla tactic. Survivors recalled, "They fired from the hilltops. We were in the open. We couldn't even lift our heads." The battle raged for nearly 4 hours. The CRPF fought back, but the odds were impossible. As soldiers fell, Maoists moved in, finishing off survivors and looting weapons. The brutality was shocking, knives and axes used on the wounded. When the firing stopped, silence revealed a scene of carnage. Rescue teams arrived hours later, delayed by blocked routes and more IEDs. The forest floor was littered with bodies, weapons gone, personal belongings stolen. The horror of Dantewada was not just in the numbers, but in the cruelty. It was a story of courage, sacrifice, and unimaginable brutality. The world saw the true face of the conflict in central India. Dantewada became a symbol of both heroism and horror. News of the Dantewada massacre stunned India. Grief and anger swept the nation as the scale of the tragedy became clear. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh called it a savage act. Home Minister Judum offered to resign. The government faced harsh criticism for its failures. Heartbreaking scenes played out as families received the bodies of their loved ones. The 76 men were not just statistics. They were fathers, sons, and brothers. The attack triggered fierce debate. Some demanded all-out war on the Maoists, others warned against more violence. The government launched massive operations, but the rebels vanished into the jungle. Morale in the CRPF plummeted. Operation Green Hunt was re-evaluated. The incident forced a reckoning. What went wrong, and how to prevent it again? The Dantewada massacre was a painful wake-up call. It exposed deep flaws in strategy, intelligence, and preparation. The nation mourned, but also demanded answers. Dantewada changed India's fight against the Maoists forever. The survivors and families of Dantewada spoke with pain and anger. A CRPF Jawan recalled, "We were walking, then a blast, firing from all sides. We didn't even see them." Many watched friends die before their eyes. The trauma would never fade. Families grieved, proud yet furious. Why were they sent without proper support? Who is responsible? Compensation was announced, but no money could fill the void. Local villagers caught in the crossfire lived in constant fear, harassed by both sides, trusting no one. "We just want peace," said one tribal elder. "This fighting has destroyed our lives." The conflict's biggest victims were ordinary people, their lives upended. Security forces, too, felt betrayed by poor intelligence and planning. Senior officials called it a catastrophic failure. Sending men on foot into a stronghold without solid intel was a suicide mission. The anger was not just personal, it was systemic. Dantewada exposed deep flaws in leadership and strategy. The voices from the ground demanded accountability and change. The tragedy was not just in the loss, but in the sense of betrayal. Dantewada's pain echoed across the nation. The Dantewada attack sparked a political storm. Opposition parties slammed the government for its weak Naxal policy. The blame game began. Center and state pointed fingers at each other. Home Minister Chhattisgarh accepted responsibility, offering to resign. The attack exposed deep divisions and lack of coordination between governments. Inside the cabinet, debate raged. Military crackdown or development and dialogue. The tragedy forced a rethinking of strategy. Better intelligence, improved training, and coordination became urgent priorities. The need for a smarter, more unified approach was clear. The attack proved the Maoist threat was real and growing. Political leaders could no longer ignore the crisis. Dantewada became a catalyst for change, forcing hard questions and new policies. The nation demanded action, not excuses. The lessons of Dantewada would shape India's response for years to come. 15 years later, the memory of Dantewada remains. The 76 men who died are remembered as heroes. Their sacrifice demands that we learn from tragedy. The first lesson: intelligence is everything. Without it, soldiers are blind. Better networks, coordination, and information sharing are essential. Second, tactics and training must match the enemy. Jungle warfare needs new skills, better equipment, and smarter strategies. Large, predictable patrols are a recipe for disaster. Most important, the conflict is not just military, it's about poverty, injustice, and neglect. Winning hearts and minds is as vital as winning battles. Development, education, and justice for tribal communities are key. Only by addressing root causes can peace be achieved. Dantewada's sacrifice must inspire a more just, inclusive India. The tragedy must never be repeated. The silence before the storm must become a lesson for the future.